Greetings to every single tennis junkie locked in right now, and a massive, deafening shout-out to the millions of die-hard supporters witnessing history from the Philippines to every nook and cranny of the globe. It is good to have you back on the feed. If you were laboring under the impression that the ceiling for Philippine tennis was reached back in Manila, or if you somehow convinced yourself the story had run its course, you need to scrub that thought immediately. If you assumed that the gut-wrenching heartbreak of those quarterfinals was the final period on this sentence, you could not be more off base. Frankly, you were dead wrong. What we just witnessed go down in the United Arab Emirates was far more substantial than a standard tennis match. This was not merely a routine round of 32 fixture at a WTA 500 event. It was a definitive, undeniable statement of intent, a flex of absolute power, and the earth-shattering arrival of a brand new epoch in the sport. We are diving headfirst into the heat at the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open 2026, breaking down a moment the world might have slept on, but definitely should have seen coming. This turnaround comes merely days following a devastating, highly emotional exit at the Philippine Women's Open, a bounce back that defies conventional logic. We are talking about a loss that left the fan base in tears and had critics whispering if the pressure cooker was too hot, yet Alexandra Eala has risen from those ashes in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. While the headline on your screen might appear simple on the surface, the reality bubbling underneath is layered, complex, and incredibly impressive. Alexandra Eala has absolutely rattled the cages of the sporting world today. She stepped onto the hard court at the Zayed Sports City International Tennis Center, not as an underdog praying for a lucky break, but as the marquee attraction, a titan who has officially cracked the code of the elite game. She has punched her ticket to the next round, but to simply say she advanced is a massive understatement. She thoroughly dismantled the opposition standing in her way. Let us paint the picture because context is king here. Imagine the intense desert heat of Abu Dhabi inside a stadium that by all sporting standards is supposed to be neutral territory. However, the second Eala walked out onto that surface, the acoustics did not sound like the Middle East. They sounded exactly like downtown Manila, feeling just like home sweet home. The deafening roar of the overseas Filipino workers, a diaspora that has been starving for a hero to rally behind, filled the air, transforming a foreign arena into an impregnable fortress for the Filipina sensation. This is the breaking news currently sending shockwaves rippling through the entire tennis community. Alexandra Eala, fresh off securing a historic career-high ranking of world number 45, has swept past her close friend and rival Turkey's Zeynep Sonmez in straight sets 6-4, 6-3. That scoreline might look tidy and clean on paper, but it masks the absolute war of attrition, the mental fortitude, and the tactical brilliance that played out over 1 hour and 31 minutes. This victory represents so much more than just a ticket to the round of 16. It is a veritable masterclass in resilience and character. It is entirely about the ability to bounce back immediately after the heartbreak in Manila, where she fell to Camila Osorio. There were many whispers wondering if that loss would haunt her psyche, or if the heavy burden of being the queen of Philippine tennis was finally dragging her down. Tonight, Alex answered every single one of those doubts with a resounding no. She did not just win the match, she completely hijacked the narrative. She took the court against Sonmez, a competitor she knows intimately, someone she considers a friend, and a player who has been making her own significant waves on the tour this season. Yet she was able to set that friendship aside for 90 minutes of pure, unadulterated competitive focus. Why is this result so shocking, and why is the tennis world buzzing with excitement? You simply have to look at the rest of the bracket. Look at the absolute carnage surrounding her draw. While Eala was busy securing her destiny, giants of the sport were tumbling down around her. The number 8 seed Paula Badosa, a name that usually strikes fear into the hearts of opponents, was upset and eliminated. Badosa is out, yet look who is still standing tall. The 20-year-old phenom from the Philippines, the Rafa Nadal Academy graduate, who can no longer be called a prospect. She is a bona fide contender. This is the specific era we have been waiting for, and the media is already dubbing it the Eala era, and for very good reason. For the first time in history, a Filipina athlete stands proudly inside the WTA Top 50. Do you truly understand the gravity and magnitude of that achievement? Rank 45 in the world. She is ranked above Grand Slam finalists, sitting higher than veterans who possess decades of tour experience. She has entered the elite echelon of women's tennis, and she celebrated that massive milestone by dismantling a world-class opponent on a global stage. The shock isn't that she won. The real surprise is just how rapidly she has evolved. We are witnessing a completely new version of Alexandra Eala. This is a version that can take a brutal punch in Manila and throw a knockout blow in Abu Dhabi less than 1 week later. The mental toughness required to reset to fly across a continent to ignore the jet lag and to block out the noise to execute a game plan so flawlessly is rare. That is the stuff that champions are made of. That is the material of legends. And we need to talk about her status as the most popular figure in Abu Dhabi. Eala isn't just a participant in the draw. She is the main event, and reports coming out of the stadium confirmed that the crowd support for her rivaled that of the top seeds. The energy inside the venue was electric, and every single forehand winner was met with thunderous, stadium-shaking applause. Every saved break point was cheered as loudly as if it were a match point. She is carrying the hopes of an entire nation squarely on her shoulders. And instead of crumbling under that weight, she is utilizing it as high-octane fuel. This victory sets up a tantalizing clash in the next round. She isn't facing just any random opponent. She is facing the giant killer Aliaksandra Sasnovich, the very woman who took down Paula Badosa. It is a collision course of destiny, but right now we need to take a second to savor this specific moment. We need to understand that what happened against Sonmez was a masterclass in controlled aggression. We saw the improvements on the serve, and we saw the heavy lefty forehand doing damage. We witnessed her incredible composure when Sonmez tried to rally back in the second set. When the score got tight at 4-3, when the pressure mounted, Eala didn't blink. She held, she broke, and she won, so buckle up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the live coverage. If you are just joining the stream now, your timing could not be more impeccable. We are standing on the precipice of what might be the most defining 7 days for Asian tennis that we have witnessed in years. We are not going to give you the standard highlight reel or skim the surface today. We are going deep, dissecting every micro-adjustment, every baseline exchange, and every strategic pivot that ultimately decided this clash. Our breakdown is going to cover the raw statistics, the mechanical brilliance behind the ground strokes, the psychological warfare, and precisely what this victory forecasts for the rest of the 2026 campaign. This is far more than a box score recap. You are watching the documentation of a superstar's ascent in real time. The global hierarchy is crumbling. The rankings are being reshuffled, and Alexandra Eala is the one holding the sledgehammer leading this revolution. A new era has officially dawned, and the impact is impossible to ignore. The tremors are being felt across the entire tour, and she has not just won a match. She has kicked down the door to the next round with absolute authority. Stay locked in because we are about to reverse engineer her blueprint for victory. We will explain why this specific result shifts the power dynamics and map out the minefield she still has to navigate to lift that championship trophy. This is the deep dive analysis you demanded, so let us get straight into the weeds. However, to truly appreciate the enormous magnitude of this win, we have to understand the context behind it. First, we need to hit the rewind button. We must transport ourselves back a few days to the suffocating humidity of the Rizal Memorial Sports Complex in Manila during the Philippine Women's Open. The atmosphere in that stadium was heavy electric, yet stifling. It was a massive homecoming party celebrating the debut of the very first WTA 125 tournament ever hosted on Philippine soil. Alexandra Eala was not merely a name in the draw. She was the marquee attraction, the heartbeat, and the spirit of that entire competition rolled into one. Her face was plastered on every billboard and featured in every commercial break. The hopes of millions rested on her racket. She fought her way to the final 8, only to run into an immovable object named Camila Osorio. That loss did not just hurt, it left a scar. If you watched the media sessions afterward, the pain was written all over her face. It was not simply a mark in the loss column. It was a gut-wrenching moment played out in front of her family and home crowd. And right on cue, the critics came out of the woodwork. They started asking if the relentless travel schedule was finally burning her out. They whispered about the pressure of the home court curse. They openly questioned whether she possessed the mental steel to bounce back in time for a major WTA 500 showcase like this one here in Abu Dhabi. And that is precisely why this backstory matters. 9 out of 10 athletes, after taking an emotional uppercut like that at home, would have pulled the chute and taken the next week off to reset. They would have gone into hiding to lick their wounds. Alexandra Eala did the exact opposite. She packed her gear and immediately hopped on the very next flight out. She headed straight into the Middle East, trading the tropical soup of Manila for the dry baking heat of the United Arab Emirates. But she landed carrying a brand new level of prestige. On Monday, literally hours before she stepped onto the court, the WTA algorithms refreshed. For the first time in her career, her global ranking started with the number 4. She clocked in at world number 45, the highest ceiling a Filipina singles player has ever smashed through. Just imagine the storm of conflicting emotions brewing in her mind. On one hand, you have the fresh, stinging pain of that Manila defeat. On the other, the undeniable validation that she has finally cracked the elite top 50 club. She walked out onto the hard courts of Abu Dhabi carrying both of those heavy realities. And somehow she transmuted that pressure into laser-sharp intent. This was not just another round of tennis. It was a live redemption arc. Now let us shine the spotlight on the woman standing across the net, Zeynep Sonmez, the surging talent from Turkey. This was not a random draw against a stranger. This matchup was deeply personal. Eala and Sonmez are actually very close friends when the cameras are off. They have shared the court as doubles partners. They grind through practice drills together constantly. They know the intimate mechanics of each other's game better than almost anyone else. Fighting a friend is often psychologically steeper than facing a bitter rival. There are zero secrets out there. Sonmez knows exactly how much Eala relies on that whipping cross-court forehand. Flip the script and Eala has Sonmez's backhand tendencies downloaded to memory. There is a massive emotional wall you have to scale in these situations. You have to find the killer instinct to dismantle the person you grab dinner with. In the pre-match press conference, Eala addressed this dynamic head-on, stating, quote, "I admire her so much." She emphasized that their bond transcends the sport. But the second the umpire announced, play, that friendship was temporarily put on ice. This demonstrates a critical evolution in Eala's maturity level. She has mastered the art of compartmentalization, being a ruthless competitor between the lines and a supportive sister outside of them. Make no mistake, Sonmez is dangerous. She is ranked 79th in the world and arrived with serious momentum from a stellar qualifying campaign at the Australian Open. She is known as a gritty defensive baseline warrior who makes you earn every single inch. Eala knew she could not just muscle winners past her. She had to structurally deconstruct the Turkish player's game piece by piece. Once the match kicked off, the rhythm was set instantly. The first set was a war for territory. Both women were protecting their service games, feeling each other out. It felt like a high-stakes tactical chess match played at 100 miles an hour. We reached a deadlock at 3 games apiece in the opener. In women's tennis, this is often called the danger zone. It is the infamous 7th game syndrome. The urgency to secure a break of serve becomes suffocating. Eala sensed the magnitude of the moment and instantly cranked up the aggression on her return game. She began stepping well inside the baseline, attacking Sonmez's second serves on the rise, effectively robbing her opponent of any reaction time. And then she broke through. She seized the lead. She backed it up to consolidate the break. Suddenly, the scoreboard read 5 games to 3. Eala was serving for the set, but Sonmez held firm to claw back to 5-4. Now the spotlight shifted squarely onto Eala's racket. Serving out a set is never a simple task, especially against a friend who has memorized your serving patterns. But this time, the Filipina star did not even blink. She utilized that wicked lefty slice serve out wide, straight from the Rafael Nadal playbook, to open up the entire court. She slammed the door shut to take the first set 6 games to 4. Why was this specifically so vital? Because just days ago in Manila against Osorio, Eala struggled immensely to close out the tight frames. Here in Abu Dhabi, she completely exorcised those demons. She won the money points. She dominated the extended rallies. She proved to the world that the mental lapse in Manila was just an anomaly, not a permanent trend. If the first set was a trench war, the start of the second set was an absolute blitzkrieg. Eala came out of the changeover firing on all cylinders. She did not just want to win the match, she wanted to impose her will. She raced out to a commanding 3-0 lead, securing a double break in the process. It began to look like a complete rout. Her forehand was painting the lines with surgical precision, and her footwork was nothing short of a masterclass. She was floating across the hard courts with a newfound athleticism, showing off a level of agility that has leveled up massively in recent months. She was tracking down balls that used to be untouchable winners, but as we all know, momentum in tennis is a slippery thing. It can turn on you in a heartbeat. You have to hand it to Zeynep Sonmez. She wasn't about to just pack her bags and hand over the win without a fight. Even though she was staring at a brutal 0-3 deficit, the Turkish competitor dug her heels in and launched a serious counterattack. She switched up her strategy, dragging out the rallies and daring Alexandra Eala to hit that one extra shot every single time. Slowly but surely, the pressure worked, and unforced errors started creeping into Eala's baseline game, completely flipping the dynamic of the match. That comfortable lead started shrinking, fast moving to 3-1 and then 3-2. Before we knew it, Sonmez had broken back, tightening the screws to bring the score to 4-3. Make no mistake, this was the turning point. The critical juncture where the match was either won or lost. The shadow of past meltdowns, the so-called Manila ghost, could have easily spooked her right there. We were watching a dominant 3-0 start threaten to dissolve into a messy 4-all deadlock, or maybe even something much worse. That kind of collapse can totally destroy a young player's confidence for months. The tension in the stadium was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The Filipino fans, who were raucous just minutes before, fell into a nervous, terrified silence. But this right here, this is exactly where the new chapter of Eala's career showed its true colors and true grit. Serving at 4-3 with a surging opponent breathing down her neck, Alex summoned her absolute peak tennis of the day. She locked into a brutal lung-burning rally at 30-all that felt like it would decide the fate of the entire set. Instead of playing it safe like most players would, she rolled the dice and ripped a fearless down-the-line winner that kissed the paint perfectly. That gutsy strike set up game point, which she converted to grab a massive 5-3 advantage. That huge hold seemed to be a dagger to the heart for Sonmez. You could literally see the fight drain out of her body as she realized Eala had survived the storm. In the final game, Alex turned up the heat, putting suffocating pressure on every single return. Eala was moving with total elegance and precision, reading the play like she had a crystal ball. Facing match point, Sonmez tried to stay in it, firing a deep, desperate return hoping to keep the point alive. But she pushed it too much. The shot drifted wide and that was all she wrote. Game, set, and match 6-4, 6-3. What a performance. Now stick around because we need to break down the statistics. The numbers tell the real story here. The whole battle wrapped up in 1 hour and 31 minutes. That is a solid professional day at the office. It wasn't a stamina-draining marathon, but it certainly wasn't a cakewalk either. It was exactly enough court time for her to find a grooved, relentless rhythm. But if you look at the stat sheet, one thing screams winner: her first serve percentage. That was undeniably the anchor of her victory. Official reports confirm she was landing an incredibly high number of first serves, a tactic that allowed her to dictate the point from the very first strike and stay in the driver's seat. Listen when you are facing a dangerous counterpuncher. Like Sonmez, missing your first delivery is like handing them a loaded gun. You get put on defense instantly. Luckily, Eala didn't give her that chance today. On top of that, her efficiency on breakpoints was absolutely lethal. Every time she saw a crack in the door to break serve, she didn't just knock, she kicked the door wide open. Tennis in the modern era is all about who claims the high-pressure points, and Eala owned every moment that mattered. And we have to talk about the atmosphere. The crowd's influence was absolutely massive. Abu Dhabi, and really the entire United Arab Emirates, is basically a second home for hundreds of thousands of overseas Filipino workers. When Alex walks onto a court there, she isn't the visitor. She is the de facto home favorite. Reports from the ground describe the stadium as a veritable sea of Philippine flags, waving proudly in the stands. The chants of "Let's go Alex" were bouncing off the walls of the Zayed Sports City complex. That energy transfer is real, folks. And in her post-match interview, she made sure to thank her kababayans, her fellow countrymen. She looked right at the camera and expressed her gratitude by saying, "Maraming salamat sa suporta," which translates to, "Thank you very much for the support." This demographic reality gives her a legitimate home court advantage whenever the tour hits the Middle East leg of the season. While other competitors might feel the loneliness of the tour hopping from hotel room to court, Eala is embraced by a community that treats her like family. That emotional buffer is a potent secret weapon. It effectively takes all that pressure and turns it into high-octane fuel. But let's pause the hype for a second and talk about the significance of the number 45. For decades, Philippine tennis has been desperately hunting for a global singles icon. We have celebrated legendary doubles specialists and regional champions, but this is different. A singles competitor smashing into the WTA top 50 is completely uncharted territory for the nation. Sitting pretty at rank 45 means a golden ticket directly into all the Grand Slams. It means saying goodbye to the brutal qualifying rounds for most major tournaments. It means securing more favorable draws in the earlier rounds. It fundamentally changes the logistics, the scheduling, and the entire trajectory of a pro career. However, walking onto the court with that top 50 badge carries its own weight. You shift from being the hunter to being the hunted. Lower-ranked players like Sonmez, who sits at 79, look at Eala as a target to take down. Alex handled that heavy expectation flawlessly. She competed with the calm and poise of a true top 50 athlete. She played with authority, and this ranking acts as the ultimate validation for the difficult path she chose. The sacrifices involved in moving to Spain, the years grinding at the Rafa Nadal Academy, and the endless battles on the ITF circuit have all culminated in this moment. She is now genuinely rubbing shoulders with the very best in the world, not just as a fan but as a peer. So, the big question is what lies ahead? The celebrations need to be kept brief because the round of 16 is serving up a fascinating and incredibly dangerous challenge. She is locked in to face Aliaksandra Sasnovich. Now, on paper, Sasnovich is ranked lower at 109, but do not let that number fool you for a second. Sasnovich is a battle-tested veteran, and notoriously one of the most dangerous floaters in any draw. More importantly, she is fresh off a massive upset against the 8th seed, Paula Badosa. Sasnovich didn't just beat Badosa. She took her down from a set behind, winning 4-6, 6-3, 6-1. That scoreline screams that Sasnovich is in peak form right now. She is gritty, she is resilient, and she is fully capable of dismantling top-tier talent. The Eala versus Sasnovich matchup is shaping up to be a classic battle of contrasting styles. Sasnovich brings a flat, hard-hitting baseline game, while Eala counters with her lefty spin and superior court craft. However, there is a distinct advantage for the Filipina here. Sasnovich just endured a grueling 3-set war against Badosa, whereas Eala breezed through a relatively efficient straight sets victory. The physical freshness factor definitely favors the Filipina. Furthermore, the psychological edge firmly belongs to Eala. She is a rocket on the ascent, hitting career-high milestones, while Sasnovich is fighting tooth and nail to claw her ranking back up. Eala is riding the momentum of her new era. Why do we keep referring to this as the era? Because it feels genuinely sustainable. This does not feel like a fleeting lucky streak that will vanish next week. When you watch Alex play in 2026, you are witnessing a complete player. Back in 2024 and 2025, we only saw flashes of brilliance mixed with frustrating inconsistency. In those past years, we saw a potent forehand coupled with a vulnerable serve. We saw a great fighting spirit marred by occasional mental lapses, but honestly, those days seem to be firmly in the rearview mirror. What went down on the hard courts of Abu Dhabi was an absolute masterclass, the unveiling of a fully realized athlete hitting her prime. We are watching a complete reinvention of her service motion, which now packs serious heat and hits corners with surgical precision. While that trademark backhand has morphed from a simple rally extender into a lethal point-ending, offensive weapon. And we have to talk about her touch at the net, which has clearly leveled up thanks to those grinding hours spent on the doubles court. Her volleys are looking crisp, sharp, and instinctual. But frankly, the scariest part for the rest of the tour is her mental game. It is rock solid. It is almost frightening to see that kind of icy composure in a competitor who is still just 20 years old. If you look at the history books, this is exactly the moment when a prospect transforms into a powerhouse, that magical window where potential explodes into dominance. We are witnessing the real-time metamorphosis of a promising junior player into a bona fide headline-grabbing star on the Women's Tennis Association circuit. Now, the casual tennis world might be scratching their heads at this result, but that is only because they haven't been paying close attention. The mainstream crowd missed the subtle upgrades she has been making for months, blinded by the flashy scoreboard that simply says she pulled off a massive upset against Sands. But for the diehards like us who dissect the film and track every training camp, this win wasn't a fluke, it was inevitable. We know this performance was built on a foundation of sweat equity, constructed through grueling strength and conditioning sessions when the cameras were turned off. This victory is the dividend of endless technical tweaks and a spirit forged in the fire of high-stakes matches, from the sweltering heat of the Australian Open to the intense pressure cooker of the Philippine Women's Open. Her run here in Abu Dhabi is more than just a good week. It is a warning shot fired across the bow of the entire league. It is a loud, unapologetic statement to every veteran in that locker room. I have arrived, I belong in the top 50, and I am coming for your spot. So we have to ask, what does this mean for the big picture? As the sun sets over the Zayed sports city, one thing is abundantly clear. The tectonic plates of Asian tennis have shifted, and this new hierarchy looks like it is here to stay. When we started our coverage of this tournament, our banners were full of words like shocking new era and viral sensation. But now that we have broken down the tape, analyzed the shot selection, and crunched the data, it is obvious those weren't just buzzwords or clickbait titles. They were describing the cold, hard facts. Alexandra Eala has pulled off a feat that most experts and betting markets would have laughed at and called impossible just a few days ago. She took the bitterness and sting of a tough loss on her home turf and used it as high-octane fuel, turning that disappointment into a golden, triumphant performance here in the desert. By doing so, she has completely validated her historic rise into the top 50 rankings. She didn't do it with trash talk. She did it by systematically dismantling a top-tier opponent with the professionalism of a 10-year veteran. While the history books will log this as a standard 6-4, 6-3 victory in the round of 32, the raw numbers don't tell the full story of what actually happened out there. For those of us tracking this narrative, this result is a massive milestone. This was the definitive moment where Alexandra Eala proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that she isn't just visiting the big stage, she belongs there. It was the match where she showed she could carry the hopes of an entire nation, handle the weight of her ranking, and deal with crushed expectations, all while playing with elegant grace and ruthless efficiency. Looking down the road, the path to the championship is still paved with obstacles, but it is hands down one of the most exciting storylines in the sport right now. Waiting for her in the next round is Aliaksandra Sasnovich, a battle-tested veteran who is coming in hot after knocking out a giant of the game. The upcoming round of 16 isn't just a tennis match. It is shaping up to be a physical war of attrition. But here is the thing. If Alex can bring that same laser focus, that dominant first serve, and that clutch mental resilience she showed today, there is no reason she can't punch her ticket to the next round. The door is wide open for her to make a legitimate run at the quarterfinals, the semifinals, or maybe just maybe go all the way and lift that trophy on Sunday. And remember, she isn't doing this alone. She is playing in front of a crowd that absolutely adores her. It is rare to see, but the fan favorite in Abu Dhabi this week isn't the #1 seed or a global icon. The people's champion is a 20-year-old phenom from the Philippines, and the energy the fans are bringing is a tangible force that lifts her up every time she faces a breakpoint. That wall of noise is rattling her opponents, effectively turning a neutral court into a hostile home game environment. We are privileged to watch a genuine international superstar blossom in real time. She is evolving past being just an athlete. She is becoming a cultural icon. The Eala era isn't some bold prediction for the future anymore. It is the undeniable reality we are living in right now. We are watching history rewrite itself, and while our analysis has focused on the tactics and the mechanics of her win, there is a deeper layer to this. The real secret sauce here is something you can't measure on a spreadsheet. It is the internal fire, the grit, and the absolute refusal to let a past failure dictate her future success. It is the courage to keep climbing the mountain no matter how steep it gets. As we look toward the next round, the question isn't, does she have the skill to win? The only question that matters now is how high can she actually fly? Based on the scintillating form she is in, the sky is truly the limit. Now I want to turn this over to the community. We want to hear from you, the loyal Eala army, the tennis historians, and the casual fans. What is your honest take on Alex's dominant performance against her opponent in the last round? Do you think her incredible comeback in the second set is the turning point for her entire 2026 season? And I want your official predictions for the showdown against Sasnovich. Does she have the tools to take down the giant killer? Drop your detailed forecasts, your tactical breakdowns, and your messages of support in the comments section right down below. We read every single comment because our goal is to build the smartest, most passionate tennis community on the internet right here on this channel. If you got value out of this deep dive analysis, and you want to stay ahead of the curve on every point, every match, and every breaking update from this unfolding era, you know what to do. Go ahead and crush that like button to show your support for Alex and help us push this content out to more tennis fans around the world. Make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss a critical update, and ring that notification bell right now because the news in Abu Dhabi is moving fast and you deserve to be the first to know. This is your host, signing off from the news desk. The world is still in shock, the new era has officially begun, and Alexandra Eala is marching into the next round. Until next time, keep your eyes locked on the court.